Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to EMSA. I would like to thank Lisbon Club for organizing this conference, second time in the row. This is an important forum which comes at the pivotal moment. We are therefore privileged to have the opportunity to assist the organization of this important event. We are moving towards the Ocean Conference as we emerge from the work of the COP26 with the conviction that the oceans are at the heart of our climate efforts. Because the ocean holds the power over us, no matter where we live. They are the lungs of the world. Every second breath we take comes from the oxygen generated by the marine environment. Oceans absorb heat, keeping our planet warm. The top 3 meters of the ocean surface contains more heat than our entire atmosphere. Ocean currents regulate not just our wealth, weather, and climate, but the destiny of our nations too. Think for a moment how much colder parts of Western Europe, for example, would be without the warmth of the Gulf Stream. It is no coincidence that the 4th out of the 10 Europeans live within the 50 kilometers of the ocean coastlines. Since the dawn of the time, the oceans had fed us, sustained us, and brought us prosperity. Our entire weight of life, even our very existence, hangs on them. Ladies and gentlemen, it is without any doubt that our blue planet depends on the healthy oceans. At the same time, the importance of maritime transport, for example, is undeniable. It is now well known that 90% of nearly everything is moved by the sea. The maritime transport sector is a silent industry that moves the world. It allows us to globalize, to be interconnected, to trade across the globe. It's the sector that kept going throughout the pandemic, often at the great personal cost of those on board the ships, to bring us food, fuel, vital medical supplies that we need. And the maritime transport sector is all around us. It brought the bricks and cement that built this fantastic room. It brought the car you drive to work today, or maybe the bicycle. It brought the headphones you are using, computers we are using, even the pen beside us. Almost everything we use, own, or wear comes to us by the sea. Maritime transport directly and indirectly supports jobs and prosperity for millions of people here in Europe and around the globe. Its sheer scale, reach, and power is immense, and it touches every aspect of our life. But the fact that the maritime transport sector is an indispensable industry presents us with a very real and very pressing challenge. We must reconcile the two needs. The need to continue shipping and trading, as we have done for millennium, and the need to keep our oceans sustainable and healthy. And I believe we can do the both. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to act, first, we must understand. Last year, here in EMSA, and together with the colleagues from the European Environmental Agency, we produced an important report that for the first time gave the full overview of the impact of maritime transport on the environment here in EU and beyond. We analyzed a range of indicators from greenhouse gas emissions to air pollution, from underwater noise to invasive species. We looked at the environmental legislative framework here in the EU and internationally set up to regulate shipping. And from the report, we clearly see the pressures point. We know that the maritime transport produces nearly 14% of the EU greenhouse gas emissions from transport, slightly behind the aviation and much behind the road transport. The report tells us that maritime transport is responsible for 24% of the sulfur oxide emissions produced by all economic sectors in EU, and at the same figure for the nitrogen oxide. These two substances are known to be damage to the human health and environment. The report also shows that there is a decrease of 60% of sulfur oxide emissions where so-called sulfur emission controlled areas were designated, like Baltic and North Sea. That is why we promote and facilitate the designation of the Mediterranean Sea as sulfur emission control areas as well. Underwater noise, to which shipping contributes, and which can have the catastrophic efforts of the marine mammals, has more than doubled in EU waters in recent years. Plastic and other waste is contaminating our seas, some of these from shipping and maritime activities like discharging of fishing vessels and fishing nets. Sometimes it seems as if the problems we face are insurmountable. But there is a hope, and we can turn the tide. 20 years ago, when we spoke about shipping-linked environmental challenges, oil pollution was in our focus. Torrey Canyon, Heaven, Amoco Cadiz, Erika, Prestige. The names of these ships and the environmental disasters they resulted are attached to our memory. For the time, it seems hopeless. We had almost resigned ourselves to think that if we want to transport the oil by sea, the pollution incident would happen. But thanks to the greater awareness, better monitoring, the use of technology, including satellites, law enforcement, action from the legislator and from the industry, the number of pollution incidents has dropped sharply. Even though we are moving more oil than ever before, there are fewer spills. So we can fight back. We have done it before, and we can do it again. European Green Deal provides us with once-in-a-generation opportunity to grasp this challenge. EMSA will play a full part in these ambitions to transform Europe into the climate-neutral continent, supporting the European Commission and the Member States across the maritime dimension. The key area of the activities will be within the framework of Fit for 55 package, which targets is the reduction of net greenhouse gas emissions from international shipping by at least 55% by 2030. Ambitious target. This package will, among other of its objectives, bring maritime emissions into the EU emission trading schemes for the first time. Another strong pillar of the Fit for 55 package is the Fuel EU Maritime, through which the European Commission, supported by EMSA, aims to increase the use of renewable and low-carbon fuels in European shipping and ports. From new generation biofuels to methanols, green hydrogen, from ammonia to batteries, many alternatives are at various stages of the development and readiness. And EMSA, we are giving full support through forthcoming studies on biofuels, ammonia, and in the near future, hydrogen as well. We are also looking at the safety aspects of these new technologies. We all know that safety is a key for sustainability. And let me stress that technology is key here. Innovation and new technologies coupled with the new skills is the game changer. But we have to ensure sufficient and dedicated financial resources, which should be available to the new investments. And we need to ensure that no one is left behind. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave you with one thought. The great Portuguese explorers crossed the ocean in wooden ships on woven sails. They plotted their routes just with compasses and star charts to guide them. What they did then seems incredible to us now, surrounded as we are with all our modern day innovations and comfort. Yet, the sailors have always done the impossible, no matter how great the odds, no matter how many the obstacles. We too are called to a great challenge. The road ahead will not be easy, but working together, legislator, public authorities, developers, innovators, industry, all aspects of logistics chain, financial institutions, and science, we can meet this sustainability challenge head-on and play our part in preserving our oceans for generations to come. And this principle applies to each and every human activity, each of us individually, and all of us together. That is a formula for success. I wish you all a successful conference and a very fruitful debate. Thank you.
Good morning. As Chairman of Club Lisboa, it gives me a great pleasure to address the opening session of this conference. I want to start by thanking our host, the European Maritime Safety Agency, in the person of its Executive Director, Mrs. Maja Markovčić. We were able to hold this conference on these premises thanks to the kind support of EMSA, and we are very grateful for that. Permit me to send a very special message to His Excellency the Ambassador of Japan in Portugal, Mr. Ushio Shigeru. Once again, the Embassy of Japan puts its faith in the Club Lisboa and provided us with the opportunity to organize an event focusing on the world's most pressing issues. We are very grateful for this trust and very honored to be selected once again as a partner, and I call your attention to the message His Excellency sent and is published in the documents of this conference regarding the commitment of the Japanese authorities to promote the reflection on these questions vital to global security and prosperity. I also want to note the cooperation with this event of the Universidade Autónoma de Lisboa and its research unit, Observare, and the presence of the elements of the Sustainable Ocean Alliance and youth climate leaders. I cannot fail to mention the key partners of the Club de Lisboa, the Municipality of Lisbon, and the Instituto Marquês de Valflor. Finally, in the name of the Club de Lisboa, I want to thank the President of the Portuguese Republic, Mr. Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, and the Secretary-General of the United Nations, Mr. António Guterres, for once again honoring us by addressing these conferences organized by Club de Lisboa. Ladies and gentlemen, for those who don't know who we are, I would like to say that Club de Lisboa was created in 2016, and its aim is to promote critical thinking and new perspectives to address global challenges, trying to influence political agendas and deepened study and discussion of issues that affect our lives in the community and that impact the sustainability of the planet and standards of living of future generations. We are a non-profit organization with a very light structure. Our members come from different sectors of the Portuguese society, and we have only a single purpose: to be useful to the community. In the past, we were involved in the organization of different conferences with many relevant international partners on diverse issues within the scope of our main objectives. However, one may say that no one of the previous events has been more pertinent to the current preoccupations that we are going through in the world. Due to the serious international political crisis we are going through nowadays, energy is at the center of the global attention. Of course, the angle from which this conference was designed did not take into account these events. But you will not be able to ignore them because realism will force you to do so. The global agenda on energy and climate issues, perhaps even its implementation schedules, will surely be conditioned by much of what is happening in the political arena nowadays. Even if the worst scenarios are not to be confirmed, it is very clear to everyone that we are no longer going to work in a business-as-usual environment. Unfortunately, even the readiness to operate on a multilateral world of dialogue and cooperations will be affected. It is quite clear that the balance of the international relations after what is happening today, in these days, will have an impact in the capacity to reorganize the global cooperation in the multilateral area. For the time being, we are all relying on site navigation, and this is a good place to say that. And it is for this reason that the purpose of this conference remains valid and relevant. And it is from this perspective that I want to wish you a fruitful work, a fruitful dialogue, and fruitful debate. We are operating, you are operating, we will be operating in an area where the challenges of the future are already felt in the present. And the conscience of that is quite clear nowadays in the global debate. And for this reason, I would like to stress that the presence of many young people linked to this conference, and this presence is already a guarantee that will be a useful exercise. This was basically our main goal. I wish you a good work on these 2 days, and thank you for your attention. I'd like to call also your attention to the message of Mr. António Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations.
Dear friends, I commend the Club de Lisboa for its support for sustainable development on land and sea. Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals entails urgent action to address the triple planetary crisis of climate disruption, biodiversity loss, and pollution. COP26 in Glasgow took some important steps, but we have a very long way to go. It is essential to meet the goal of limiting global temperature rise by 1.5 degrees. That will require the world to cut emissions by 45% by 2030 and achieve net zero emissions by 2050. But according to current commitments, global emissions are set to increase by almost 14% over the current decade. That spells catastrophe. Small island nations, least developed countries, and poor and vulnerable people everywhere are one shock away from doomsday. We need an avalanche of climate action. It is time to go into emergency mode, to end fossil fuel subsidies, phase out coal, put a price on carbon, build coalitions of action to provide financial and technical support for countries that need assistance to wean themselves from coal dependency. Build resilience of vulnerable communities against the here and now impacts of climate change, and make good on the annual $100 billion climate finance commitment to support developing countries. Every country must strengthen their nationally determined contributions until they collectively deliver the 45% emissions reduction needed by 2030. And every sector, every industry, including shipping and aviation, must play its part to reach net zero emissions by 2050 with verifiable and aligned 2030 targets, credible and clear measures, and maximum urgency. Your conference falls between COP26 and the United Nations Ocean Conference, scheduled to be held in Lisbon in June. We need to save our ocean to protect our future. When we look at the ocean, we see the dramatic effects of climate change everywhere. The ocean is growing warmer and more acidic, polar ice is melting, and global weather patterns are changing. Coral reefs are dying, ocean ecosystems are suffering, and so are the communities who depend on them. The same story is true on land. Climate disruption is real, and it's here. We are all in the same boat, and we need all hands on deck. Young people understand this. I applaud their energetic advocacy for climate action, and I thank the Club de Lisboa for engaging youth and supporting their efforts. By working together, we can beat the climate crisis and bequeath a sustainable world for generations to come. Thank you.